If you have trouble keeping your dang legs closed or you just can't bring your feet and your knees together, then this video is going to help you out. I'm going to show you exercises that'll help you bring your feet and legs together. So if you're ready, let's get ready to think right, move right, and feel right. First things first, this video is in response to a question from Adele, who's a supporting member of the Upright Health YouTube channel, and she was telling me that her son actually has trouble getting his legs to come together because his hip muscles don't know what to do. I also got a similar email from Noreen, who's a user of one of my do-it-yourself programs, which you can find on my website at uprighthealth.com. Now, if you are in this situation, I want to remind you, don't get caught in RIPS or rest, ice, injections, pills, and surgery. You want to ATM, always think muscles. Why? Because muscles move bones. So if you have a problem positioning your bones somewhere, you got to use your muscles. So in this video, I'm going to show you a couple different stretches and exercises that are going to help you fire up the right muscles so you can bring your legs together. Before we jump into the exercises, I want to ask you a question. What got you thinking about this in the first place? Drop me a comment down below, and bonus points for being real funny because this topic's ripe for it. All right, no more hesitation. Let's get into the exercises. So let's start off with some stretching. So you may have trouble getting your feet and legs together when you're standing in this hip extension, hip extended position. You may also have trouble getting your legs together when you are in a hip flex position. So you're sitting down and you're like, oh, I just can't bring them together. So we're gonna work on first getting the outer hips to stretch out a little bit. Using a yoga block or just a step will be a great way to do this. What you're gonna do is, with a yoga block, just put it in front of you. You're going to step on it. You're going to lean against a wall or anything sturdy, and then you're going to push your hip out to the side. Okay, you're going to feel for stretch all along the outer hip. So you're just pushing the hip to the side. You can move your pelvis forward, which will put your leg into more extension. You're going to feel more stretch across the front of the hip. The more you push to the side, the more you feel stretch across the outer hip. You can play around, wiggle around, go into hip flexion, see how that feels. Wherever you're restricted, hang out there. Take your time, breathe and relax, and let that stuff open up. Keep your abs engaged. I like to just keep poking at my belly to make sure that those abs stay on. And don't let your low back go into a big booty shake and arch, okay? We want to keep that under control so you focus the stretch into the side of the hip, the front of the hip, instead of feeling like you're crunching your low back, okay? So you want to do that on both sides. Make sure you get those things opened up. If you feel one side is a little bit stiffer than the other side, then spend some extra time on that stiffer side that just doesn't seem to want to move, okay? So I find having this step really helps control the position. If you don't have the step, you can still do it, but it just feels like you're more likely to arch your back a bunch. Having your foot elevated helps you keep that under control so you can really focus into your stretched hip. Oh yeah, okay. So that helps if you find it difficult to bring your feet together in extension. What about if you find like, oh, it's just not as easy once I'm bending or once I have hip flexion? Well, in that case, we can continue to play here, just like we were doing earlier, like I showed you. We can bend into hip flexion. But if you want to make this even more intense and go into more hip flexion, you're on that step or that yoga block, and this side is just going to be the side that's stretching. So you're standing on that elevated surface. The other side is dropping down towards the ground, okay? So like this, I'm coming down, I'm really getting into this left leg, I'm dropping my right hip down towards the ground. So now I'm creating more adduction. I'm bringing this towards the midline. I'm really stretching out the outer hip, and I'm going to keep going deeper and deeper into hip flexion. This is going to feel like a massive challenge to the outer hip and also to the hamstrings, and that's great. You can also, while you're here, play around with your foot. You can angle so your ankle goes out. You can angle a little bit so the ankle collapses. Don't force the ankle collapse, but be aware that you want to be able to control different foot and ankle positions. And if you just wiggle around, you might find that there's some magical pieces of stiffness depending on how you position your foot and ankle. So you want to keep focusing on dropping that right hip, get that stretch on that left leg, and then we'll switch. Do that on the right side, right foot on there, left, and then drop that left hip down, 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 down. You can let it go all by itself, or you can use a little bit of support here. That's okay too. So you're just trying to really feel it into the butt here. Let me show you from this side. So I'm going down, I can press it over, really feeling this, getting challenged, really feeling the hamstrings as well, but really trying to find it deep into the side of the hip, hanging out, and feeling muscle. The one thing you don't want to feel is pinching and jamming in your groin. You want to feel like you're stretching in the outer hip, in those glute areas. I want to say a big thanks to some new Patreon supporters, Heidi and Steve. Thank you so much for becoming big supporters of the Upright Health YouTube channel. Joseph, Jean, and Jimmy, I appreciate you as well. If you want to support this channel too, you can find the Patreon and PayPal links down below, or use the thanks or the join button here on YouTube. Now let's get back to it. So now that we've done a little bit of stretching for the outer hips, we can work on activating the muscles in the inner thighs that'll help us bring our feet and legs together. So if you're stuck out here and you're like, oh, what is happening? Then it's really helpful to use something to push against. So I'm going to use a yoga block as an example, but if you find that your legs are kind of stuck much wider than a yoga block, then use something wider, use multiple yoga blocks to do this. But the basic setup is this. You put the yoga block here, and you're going to be squeezing in. To start with, I think it's a good idea to maybe stick it between your ankle bones so that you can just feel that you're going straight in like this, so you're feeling your inner thighs pressing together. You want to have your feet parallel to one another. You don't want to have them like this right now unless that is intentionally something you're trying to improve. But for right now, I'm assuming we want to get good, normal, standing, symmetrical posture. So just squeezing in like this is how we want to do it. If you find that you're trying to improve your adduction, your legs closing with more hip extension, then you can do this lying down like so, and then just squeeze in, squeeze in, squeeze in. The idea here is to keep squeezing, okay? You just keep squeezing in, hold the contraction until you feel the fatigue in your inner thighs. Make sure that those muscles in there are working. Don't push so hard, don't contract so hard that you feel pops and snaps and that you're breaking stuff. No pinching, no jamming, just stable, steady contraction at a medium level. When it gets tired, you're done. Now, when you have trouble closing your legs, you often also have trouble creating internal rotation of the femurs. You can't really bring things in like this. So to combat that, you can modify this exercise or progress it a little bit to putting the cushion or whatever you're using between the big knuckle of the big toes of your dirty, dirty, dirty feet. Oh, my feet are... Now when you're squeezing, you are creating internal rotation and adduction, and that's going to help you find the muscles that create that motion. So you're just going to hang out there, keep squeezing, find the angle that feels challenging, whether that's leaned back, whether that's way up front, whatever it is, play around. Find the angles that are useful for you, that are challenging for you, and get those muscles awake. Once you feel the fatigue, then you can go ahead and say, man, that was awesome. Then over time, as you get better and better at this exercise, as you're able to use less and less cushion, you keep narrowing your leg position, right? So now I've got this yoga block turned so that's on the thin side. And then as I get better and better at this, I can just use a thin piece of cushion right here. I can use a shoe or a sandal, stick it between, and just keep getting used to that squeezing so that these inner thighs get used to functioning at this shortened length. And now we move on to the next exercise that's going to fry your inner thigh. So what you're going to do is lie on your side like this. If you're on a hard piece of concrete, then I suggest you use a nice piece of cushion, because lying on a piece of concrete is generally not considered very comfortable. You're going to take this yoga block, put it in front of you. You're going to have this bottom leg in extension, and then this leg is going to come up and in front of you. If this is not comfortable because you lack the flexibility or it's just super awkward, you can use a stack of cushions or a yoga block or something to just spoon so that you feel really comfortable and full of love. All the work in this exercise is going to be on this bottom leg. So we're going to be lifting up that bottom leg up towards the sky, the ceiling, the heavens, and you're going to use those inner thigh muscles. If it's really hard to do this, if you feel like you can't move it at all, then one thing you can do is elevate your hip so that you have a little more access to those inner thigh muscles. So this just puts you a little more into abduction, where you probably have some more strength, and then you're able to fire those muscles and bring them up. Just use something softer than this most likely, and don't put it in such an elevation that you feel super tweaked and hurt your back. Okay, so just a little bit of elevation, just enough to be able to find those inner thigh muscles. Okay, and then you're gonna do that 10 to 20 times if you can, as many as you can. Slow and controlled, hold that top position, really feel those inner thigh muscles working, and then put it back down. If you want more challenge, take a weight. Put that weight on your thigh, near your knee. We're not putting it all the way down on the ankle yet because that's gonna be really hard to start. So stick it right there on the thigh and then up you go. So the further away we put it from the hip joint, the harder it's gonna be. So putting the ankle weight at the ankle, while it would make sense since it's called an ankle weight, would be really darn hard to start, okay? So we're gonna just be going like that, just like that, just like that. Cool, all right? And then when you want more challenge, absolutely okay. I was just being very dramatic. It's totally okay to put the ankle weight there. If you're gonna put an ankle weight on, I would suggest using a lighter ankle weight first. So you can just go with like 1 pound and then progress it to 5 pounds or 10 pounds or whatever you want to do, and work it till it's fatigued. Now you might be asking, what about my other side? And what if I need to improve my ability to close my legs in hip flexion? Well, good question. All you have to do is modify that bottom position. You're gonna just be lying on your side, and when you do the exercise this time, you're going to bring the leg forward into flexion, right? So this hip is now in flexion, and now you're gonna bring the leg up. All the same rules apply. You go slow and controlled, hold that top position, really feel those muscles working, and keep firing those adductors. When you want more challenge, ankle weight, and away we go. And definitely explore. Move that leg closer to your face. See what you can do, and feel those inner thigh muscles work, okay? And more challenge, ankle weight on the ankle. Oh gosh. So now that you've done those exercises, you can finish up by bringing your feet as close together as you can get them, and then work on forward folding just to integrate all of this into a normal human motion. So go to wherever you can get. If you feel like, it's only here right now, that's fine. Just breathe. Let your hamstrings relax. Let your hips try to figure out what to do. Now that you have taught the hips to let go on the outside and you've fired up the inner thighs, you should now have a little extra range, and you should have the ability to go into a little more of a hinge, and you can train your hips to be able to use that new range of motion that you've just created. You can work on doing the hinge 5, 10, 20 times. Just do the hinge slow and mindfully. Enjoy it. Use it as an exploration. You can even shift from side to side while you're doing this. Feel which hip is maybe a little tighter than the other. Feel which hip is maybe a little looser than the other. You can reach a little to the side, reach a little to the side. Don't push into anything that pinches or jams, but really treat it as an exploration and as an opportunity for your muscles to learn how to do something a little different than they're used to. When you first start with these exercises, I encourage you to remember that slow is safe and fast is foolish. Start off slow and easy, explore these exercises, make sure you feel the right muscles working. As you get familiar with the exercises and you feel like they're helping you, then do them more often and just adjust to see how your body responds. If it wants more, give it more. If it feels like it's too much, it's probably too much. Remember that whenever you have trouble positioning bones, you need to always think muscles, because muscles move bones. Being able to bring your legs together is a sign of having healthy hips, and if you want to build healthier hips, check out my Healthy Hips program at uprighthealth.com/healthy-hips. I'll leave a link down below. If you're looking for another free video to help you with your hip health, check out these videos here. If you want to support this channel, use the join or the thanks button, or use the Patreon or PayPal links you'll find in the description box. Like, share, and subscribe with the bell notification on, and as always, I hope you remember that pain sucks, life shouldn't.